Shocking truth, why Paul called himself a slave will haunt you forever. In a small town wrapped in whispers and shadows, Paul stood at the center of a storm that would shake the very core of his existence. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky blood-red, mirroring the turmoil swelling in his heart. Paul wasn't just any man. No, he labeled himself a slave, and if you thought that was just a metaphor, you were gravely mistaken. People stared, eyes wide with disbelief and curiosity. How could a man in modern America call himself such a thing? As he took a deep breath, his chest felt tight, every inhale laced with fear. The whispers began to swirl around him. Did you hear what he said? A slave? A woman clutched her friend's arm, her voice trembling as if she had just caught sight of a ghost. Paul was different enough that he sent chills down their spines. Unusual marks curled around his wrists, remnants of chains that had never existed. Or so they thought. They didn't know about the late nights when Paul would sit alone, grappling with his past. The shadows crept closer, blending into the fading light, as if they were alive, witnesses to his confession. Why would a man throw himself into this twisted narrative? Questions hung in the air, thick and suffocating. As the stars emerged, undeniably beautiful yet cold, Paul felt an ominous pressure. Every gaze was a dagger, every hushed tone a reminder of the life he led, the life toward something darker than most could imagine. He wandered through the streets, lost in thought, the clamor of the nighttime crowd fading into a dull roar, like an echo from a distant world. Something terrible had drawn him to this title. Something he knew but never dared reveal. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Snap! A twig broke beneath his foot, sending a jolt through his veins. His heart raced as he spun around, adrenaline flooding his system. What was that? The dark corners of his world twitched and shifted. A shadow flickered behind a lamppost, a figure lurking just out of view. Paul's breath quickened. Was he being watched? It felt like more than mere anxiety, it felt like fate had drawn a line, and he was teetering on the edge. In his mind, he grappled with the truth, the weight of their expectations, the chains of his own past. Could they bind him forever? What had he stumbled into? Whatever it was, it held the key to the mystery of his life and the answers he feared might destroy him. The ground beneath him felt unstable, shifting like the very fabric of reality. He had to find the strength to confront what lay ahead, but that shadow, the one lurking just out of sight, could it hold answers or doom? What had he gotten himself into? And would he ever break free from this strange title that clung to him like a second skin? The night wrapped around him, the air heavy with the electric tension of secrets yet to be uncovered, as he stepped deeper into the unknown. Paul's skin prickled with unease as he stood still, the faint sounds of laughter and chatter fading into muted echoes behind him. With every fleeting moment, the figure stepped from the shadows, the outline becoming sharper as the lamppost pulsed with yellow light. The glow illuminated a face he recognized all too well, a face etched into his memory like a painful scar. James, he gasped, voice breaking on the syllables. James, his childhood friend turned tormentor, stood there, an unsettling smirk twisting his lips. Narrowed eyes glinted in the light, eyes that had seen too much yet cared too little. Paul's heart drummed in his chest, a primal warning beat he couldn't silence. How did he find me here? Still playing the hopeless dolt, I see, James sneered, taking a step closer. The crowd around them continued to swirl, oblivious to the confrontation brewing beneath the surface. You really think you're a slave? What a joke. Paul clenched his fists, fighting the urge to strike back. Words clung to his throat like thorns. The truth was complicated, tangled in emotions he couldn't articulate. You don't understand. James laughed, a cold, hollow sound. I understand more than you think. You always used to act like you were special, haunted by some imaginary chains, he said, stepping right into Paul's space, face inches away. But those marks on your wrists? They're nothing but a joke. Just scars from your pathetic past. Heat coiled in Paul's stomach. The memories surged like a tidal wave. Late nights tangled in terror, fingers gripping the sheets, plagued by dreams of suffocating darkness. You don't know what I've been through. You never cared. Do you think shouting will change it? You think wearing your scars like badges means anything? James hissed, his simmering contempt thickening the air. Paul's chest tightened, each breath a struggle against rising panic. The truth he'd almost buried had found him, like a ghost that never rested. Behind James, the night shifted again, the shadow that had been lurking now became a hallway of memories Paul wished he could erase. Choices he'd made, people he'd tried to escape, all coming crashing back. He no longer recognized himself. What is it that haunts you, Paul? James probed, tilting his head, theatrically curious. Or is it the veneer, the facade you built? Shut up. Paul spat out, realization washing over him like cold water. The way James toyed with his words was no different from the pressure he'd felt from everyone. It was never about true understanding, it was about control. He felt the chains of the world tighten around him, reminding him just how much they bound him. At that moment, the intensity of their standoff exploded. A nearby lantern flickered out, plunging them into darkness, as if the universe conspired to silence their conflict. The laughter around them dimmed into an eerie hush, like a heartbeat that stilled in fear. Then, in that breathless silence, Paul felt an unexpected surge of defiance. He wasn't just the boy who carried shadows anymore, he could seize this moment. The weight of his truth could either free him or obliterate him completely. Leave me alone, James. This time, I'm not afraid. The words spilled out, infused with a fervor he didn't know he possessed. But James only smirked, darkness retreating behind him. He stepped back, hands raised mockingly. Oh, I'm just getting started. As he turned to disappear into the shadows, a chill crept down Paul's spine. He felt at the dawning recognition that this confrontation was far from over, something far more sinister at play, lurking just beneath the surface. What did James really want, and what more did he know about Paul's truth? Revealing the answers now meant digging deeper into his past than ever before. Paul stood there, heart racing with anticipation, realizing he had no choice. He had to unravel the tangled web before it consumed him. What lay behind the next corner, and how far into his past was he willing to dive? As the chill of the night settled deeper, questions lurked in the back of his mind, old ghosts. Becoming present dangers once again. Paul's heart continued to race, each thud echoing the anger and confusion swirling inside him. He felt lightheaded. Finding James had pulled him into a dark spiral he could hardly navigate. The street was now enveloped in silence, a void that left him disoriented. Memories clawed at his mind like desperate hands reaching from the depths of a nightmare. That he glanced around, the lively crowd now reduced to shadows and whispers. Every face seemed to blur as if they all shared in a secret he wasn't privy to. In that moment, the weight of solitude crashed over him, the sense of being utterly alone amidst the swirling chaos. Hey! A voice broke through the haze, sharp as broken glass. It was a girl, stepping out from the side street, her dark hair flaring in the dim light. Are you all right? Paul blinked, trying to shake off the shadows that enveloped him. I need to go, he stammered, aware of the vulnerability etched on his features. But the girl stood her ground, concern etching her brow. No. You can't just run off. That guy, he didn't look right. She glanced over her shoulder like a flickering bird, as if sensing a threat. What did he say to you? Nothing I can't handle. Paul fought to sound tough, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. She stepped closer. You can't ignore it. If he's come back for you. Her voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken fears. Back for me? His chest tightened, pieces of fear beginning to tumble into a mosaic of dread. What do you mean? I heard things about you, about him. The words spilled out in a rush, as if she feared they might vanish into the night. James wasn't just a bully. He was involved in some dark stuff. Everyone knows it. You don't want to get caught in his web. He's not here for small talk. Paul's throat dried. The weight of her words sank in. Was it possible that James's torment had escalated into something more malignant? What are you saying? He's just twisted. He can't hurt me anymore. Don't even think that. She crossed her arms, looking him dead in the eye, an intense fierceness radiating from her. You need to confront this. Trust me, running isn't the answer. You need to face your past head-on. A shiver ran down his spine, and he shook his head, trying to clear the fog. You don't know what it's like. He knows things. Dark things I thought I was free from. For a brief moment, the girl's eyes softened. But you're not free. Not yet. You need to confront him, confront it all. You won't find freedom by hiding. Each word hung in the air heavy with truth. Yet another layer of fear unfurled in him, one that revolved around what he might find if he chose to face James again. A confrontation now felt inevitable. Paul. James's voice suddenly sliced through the air, mocking yet taunting, echoing off the alley's walls. You can't just walk away. The past never lets go. You need to learn that. Paul froze. His body tensed at the sound, primal instincts urging him to flee. The girl stepped beside him, protective and fierce. We can face him together. But could he? Paul felt the gravity of his own fears pulling him down, a battle between flight and fight. You don't know what he's capable of, he whispered, the weight of doubt choking his resolve. Yet, something deep inside him yearned to disentangle that web, dark visions dancing in his mind, unshackling the chains that still chased him. Maybe the truth is worse than you imagine. The girl's voice dipped low, electric with dread. But wouldn't you rather face it now than live in the shadows? Paul looked back toward the darkness where James lingered, a smirk plastered across his face. There was something lurking behind those eyes, something deeply unsettling. For a fleeting moment, Paul contemplated life shackled to the past, the chains of fear clasping tighter. Can I face him? He muttered. Only one way to find out, she urged, threading her fingers through his. With a deep breath, he took a step forward into the unfolding night, aware that whatever awaited them could either shatter his remaining defenses or finally free him from the ghosts that had haunted him for years. What awaited them in that confrontation, what truths would claw their way to the surface, remained a burning question in the depths of his heart. The darkness swirled thicker as they approached the mouth of the alley, every step dragging Paul deeper into a pit of dread. Shadows flickered in his peripheral vision, taunting him. Behind him, he could feel the weight of the girl's grip, her fingers a lifeline, yet Paul couldn't shake the sensation that darkness was seeping through every crack, inviting, waiting. Stay close, she whispered, a slight tremble in her voice that mirrored his own racing heart. As they entered the narrowing alleyway, James's figure emerged from the deep shadows, flickering in and out like a disconcerting mirage. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, a predatory grin locked on his face, the stale stench of malice wafting from him. Look who it is, the kid who thought he could run away. James, Paul's voice barely made it out, hoarse with fear. Each syllable seemed to shake, like an ice sheet cracking underfoot. Ah, the brave hero returns. I've been waiting for you to come home. James pushed off the wall and stepped forward, amplifying the threat swirling in the air. You thought I wouldn't notice you were back. You thought you could hide. Cut it out. The girl stepped in front of Paul, her posture fierce, eyes aflame with defiance. Leave him alone. James merely laughed, the sound like jagged glass slicing through the night. Why would I ever do that? He still owes me for all those little pathetic moments he tried to forget. You think I'm just going to let those go? Paul felt a wave of nausea wash over him as twisted memories seeped back each taunt, every shove, the way James had manipulated the narrative of his life like a puppet master pulling strings. The emotions tangled in his throat made it hard to breathe, but despite the fear clawing at his insides, he took a hesitant step forward. What do you want from me? Want? James's grin widened, revealing the darkness lurking behind a facade of charm. You have no idea what I'm capable of, do you? You think running away was enough to escape? You need to understand there are shackles stronger than chains, Paul. You're still mine. The words hit Paul like a punch to the gut. Feelings of helplessness shot through him, flashbacks of torment raging in his mind. He shuddered, trying to regain composure, wrestling his humiliations to the surface. You can't control me anymore. Oh, I can't. James flicked his gaze toward the girl standing resolute between them, her fierce protection seemingly igniting a flicker of vulnerability in him. Then why did you bring her here? You think she'd want to get mixed up in your mess? Poor little lamb, doesn't she know the wolves that are lurking? Shut up! Paul shouted, anger igniting within him like an erupting volcano. Memories of his childhood flashed through his mind, intertwining with the present in a chaotic dance of frustration and energy. I'm not afraid of you. Not anymore. James's demeanor shifted, his playful mask slipping for a fragile moment, revealing a glimpse of rage. Oh, but you should be. You've been running from the truth, hiding from your own reflection. You don't even know what that past cost you. Enough. The girl's voice rang out like a bell, powerful and unwavering. We know you're twisted, James. But we're here to end this once and for all. A sinister laugh escaped from James' lips. You think you can end something that was never meant to be over? This is just the beginning. And trust me, darling, it won't be pretty. The air thickened with tension, Paul felt his spine straighten, determination forging through the cracks of fear. It was all or nothing, fight or be thrown back into that abyss of despair. Let's make it a fight then, Paul challenged, feeling the intensity of the moment sway him, a sudden clarity washing over him. Let's finally air out those dark secrets, and see who walks away. As the words left his lips, Paul realized he might have just opened a floodgate to revelations far darker than he could ever anticipated. Don't say I didn't warn you, James sneered, stepping forward with an intensity that echoed Paul's heart pounding in his chest. Then, the darkness shifted, the alley shifting around them like the inevitable tide ready to crash against them. Paul's mind raced, knowing that beyond this confrontation lay secrets that could unravel everything he thought he knew, what truths were buried beneath the weight of past torment. Would this fight shatter the fragile peace he barely held on to, or would it free him in ways he never expected? As shadows closed in, he felt the foreboding dread deepen, uncertainty thrumming at his core. The alley loomed like a chasm, swallowing the last glimmers of light. The darkness pulsed around them, alive with unspoken threats. Paul could hear his heartbeat thrumming violently in his ears, barely masking the laughter that still echoed from James. It sat heavy in the air, mixing with the smell of decay that lingered far too long. Ready to uncover your past, Paul? James taunted, stepping deeper into the shadows, his figure fluid, effortless. He was a serpent, slithering through the darkness, and every word dripped with venom. Or do you prefer staying wrapped in that cozy blanket of ignorance? Whatever you think you know you don't. I'm not a kid anymore, Paul forced out, each word like shards of glass on his tongue. The girl stood resolute at his side, an unwilling guardian standing against a storm, and he drew strength from her presence. Oh, but you are still the same boy, James purred, voice dripping with mock sympathy. A coward, running from truths that gnaw at him. The enjoyment in his tone twisted like a knife in Paul's gut. The girl took a step forward, her expression unyielding. What are you so afraid of, James? Hiding in the shadows like a rat, using fear as your weapon? James scoffed, but the slightest twitch of his brow betrayed him. Fear. You misunderstand. I thrive in the dark because that's where the truth lies, sweetheart. You two are standing on a fault line. One wrong step, and the ground will swallow you whole. Paul felt the tremors underfoot, a low rumble of dread that whispered of the storm beneath their feet. This isn't some game, James. You've manipulated lives, you've twisted everything into something grotesque. But it's over now. Overshadowed by your own shadows, a little more like it. James's words dripped with mocking empathy. Every action, every moment, it all leads back to your weakness. You were never strong enough to stand against me, let alone to confront your own demons. Paul's chest tightened, images flashing like lightning in his mind, nights spent crouching under desks, fists clenched against the inevitability of pain, suffocating silence broken only by James's jeering voice. He shook back the memories, fixing his gaze on James. You think tearing me down defines you? It only highlights your own failures. For a moment, the alley fell silent. Even the shadows seemed to hold their breath. Paul seized the opportunity, his voice steady, slicing through the thick tension. I'm done being scared. Maybe you thrive in darkness, but I'm ready for the light. That's cute, James replied, dismissing Paul with a wave. But a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. You think you can fight what's buried deep within you? You don't even know what you're capable of until you do. Before Paul could respond, a howl rose from the depths of the alley, piercing through the layers of their confrontation. The sound sent icy fingers down his spine, reverberating off the walls, rattling the very foundations of his defiance. The girl gasped, looking towards the source of the noise, eyes wide with fear. What was that? James's smile faded into a grimace of annoyance. Just the beginning of the real game. Things you've tucked away are clawing their way back. Panic tightened around Paul's heart as shadows shifted and splintered. He could feel the walls of the alley close in, suffocating him under a weight of his own unacknowledged nightmares. He took a step back, adrenaline pumping as something slithered across the ground, beneath the veil of darkness. Are you ready to see, Paul? James's voice slid back into the moment like twilight, oppressive and enticing. To face what you've hidden. The truth is coming, one way or another. With one determined breath, Paul stood firm. I'm not afraid anymore. But as the howl echoed again, more feral this time, he wasn't so certain. What truths loomed on the horizon? Would facing them shatter the remnants of his fragile sanity, or finally set him free from James's twisted grasp? The shadows parted slightly, revealing a figure lurking where the darkness met the light, a silhouette too familiar, yet too horrifying to comprehend. Paul, the voice called, resonating with all the memories he had wished to forget. It's time to remember, and just like that, everything shifted, each decision hanging precariously in the balance as dread washed over him once more. The figure stepped into the dim light, a ghost from Paul's past. His breath caught in his throat as recognition crashed over him like a tidal wave. Lila. He whispered, the name escaping his lips before he could stop it. She was the light from a dream long buried, her face both beautiful and haunting. Paul, she echoed, her voice trembling. Pain flashed in her eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by a resolve that left him breathless. Beneath the soft curve of her smile lay a storm, a tempest of sorrow and disbelief tangled in memories that felt too heavy to carry. It's not real, he choked out, disbelief boiling in him like acid. You died, I lost you. Did you? She shot back, her words sharp as a blade. Or did you just bury those memories so deep that they became shadows of your own making? James shifted, amusement dancing in his gaze. Told you, Paul. All truths eventually claw their way back, didn't I? Welcome to your twisted little reunion. Paul's heart raced, clamoring like a wounded animal. He wanted to dismiss James, but Lila's presence drew him in, anchoring him amidst the chaos. How can this be? You were gone. The words spilled out, thick with desperation. I had to leave because of him. Because of the secrets. Lila stepped closer, shadows stretching between them, like a veil pulling tighter. They can't stay buried forever, Paul. You need to confront the reality of what happened. The shadows around them seemed to ripple, alive with echoes of laughter, cries, and fading whispers. Intangible tendrils slithered through Paul's mind, tugging at memories he had buried deep, the school hallways, the screams, and the broken promises. I wasn't strong enough, he murmured, to save you. Or maybe you were too afraid to try. Her eyes drilling into him, each word felt like a punch. You became a slave to your own fears, Paul. Running from the truth only feeds it. It's time to wake up. James stepped in, the smirk faltering. A heartwarming reunion, but what's the point if it turns into a funeral? Remember what I said about the fault line? The ground beneath you is ready to give, and all this sentiment only delays the inevitable. The howl echoed again, sharper, feeding off the tension. Paul's heart raced, thoughts spiraling. What is it you want, James? Oh, I want to watch the both of you burn. He laughed, the sound dark and twisted, reverberating around them. But first, I want to see if you can even lay bare what you've hidden. A cold wind whipped through the alley, carrying the scent of rain mixed with something far more feral. Paul's skin prickled as the shadows shifted, whispering secrets he had kept within, and the ground beneath trembled menacingly. Run! Lila shouted, urgency cutting through the haze of horror. We have to find a way out before it's too late. But something deep within Paul kept him rooted. The darkness didn't just threaten him, it was a part of him. No. His voice was steady now, fueled by something other than fear. I won't run anymore. I need to face this. And at that moment, the shadows lunged forward, merging into a single, swirling mass, hungry and feral. Paul felt a jolt of terror as he readied himself for the inevitable, for whatever truth awaited him. Face it with me. Lila shouted, her hand reaching out, radiating hope that tried to pierce through the darkness. Together, he confirmed, the two of them holding steady against the encroaching chaos. But the darkness wasn't merely a metaphor anymore, it was alive, and it had teeth. As night threatened to consume them, a primal roar erupted from the shadows, sending Paul's heart racing into a frenzy. Everything hung in the balance, teetering precariously on the edge of revelation and horror. Would he finally know the truth or would it crush him under its weight? And just as the abyss opened wide before him, Paul realized he stood at the threshold of his worst fears. Not just James's game, but a reality he could no longer escape. All or nothing, Paul. He screamed as the shadows lunged, and all-consuming darkness enveloped them. What would he uncover next, and would it be worth the cost of finally confronting the truth about Lila? The darkness slammed against Paul like a tidal wave, a rush of suffocating weight. He gasped, his lungs burning, grabbing at Lila's hand instinctively. She gripped him tight, her eyes piercing through the thick shadows. They stood there, two fragile flames against an enveloping storm. Stay with me. Lila shouted, her voice nearly swallowed by the roar of chaos. But a flicker of fear danced behind her fierce expression, and Paul could feel the pull of the shadows threatening to tear them apart. I don't want to lose you again. He cried out, desperate. The realization struck him like a lightning bolt, he had spent so many years running from the pain of her loss, but now she was here, real and tangible and so close. We won't lose each other. She promised, though her voice trembled against the oppressive force pressing in. As the shadows writhed, Paul caught glimpses of fleeting faces, strangers and familiar souls entangled in sorrowful cries. Each visage whispered secrets, regrets, and wounds long unhealed, resonating with Paul's own buried memories. He felt a tightening knot in his chest. How much of this was his fault? How much had he hidden? Look at me, Lila commanded, grounding him amidst the chaos. You can't face this alone. We need to confront it together. He nodded, forcing his reality into sharp focus. What do I have to do? Remember the truth, she urged, fierce determination flooding her features. Remember why you called yourself a slave. With a leap of faith, Paul dove into the memories dancing at the edge of his mind, images of wild laughter and crushed hopes, the endless hallways echoing with the aftermath of those fateful days. He thought of the nights he spent haunted by nightmares, shackled by the burden of inaction. James's mocking laughter cut through the darkness. Still clinging to each other like fools. Those chains won't break. The shadows surged forward, a ravenous beast that yearned for their despair. Paul could feel the pull, a temptation to shut his eyes and surrender. But Lila's hand, warm and steady, reignited something inside him. Lila, he began, voice breaking. But she pushed him forward. Say it, Paul. I'm afraid. The words exploded from his lips. Afraid of the truth. Afraid of failing you again. Then let that fear fuel you, Lila said fiercely. You have to acknowledge it, confront it. It's just as real as I am. Heart pounding, Paul took a deep breath. I tried to protect you, but in the end, I lost you. I buried the guilt thinking it would shield me from the truth. I called myself a slave to my own cowardice. The release felt heavy, like a weight slipping from his shoulders. Good, Lila whispered, her grip tightening. Now, we fight back. Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, as if recoiling from the light of his confession. In the sudden gap, Paul glimpsed a way out, a flicker of hope breaking through the waves of darkness. But he could feel the darkness shifting, sensing vulnerabilities. Hold on to that truth. Lila urged. It's our weapon. James howled with fury. You think you can fight me? You'll regret this. The winding mass of shadows lunged again, more ferocious than before. Paul stood tall, drawing on the fear he had owned, standing side by side with Lila. No more running. They readied themselves, hearts racing, as the chaos surged. As they faced the abyss, the shadows began to seep into their surroundings, waiting to pull them down, to pull them apart. And just as they steeled themselves for battle, a low growl vibrated through the air, dark and unsettling, a harbinger of something far worse lurking just beyond their sight. What now? Paul whispered, dread slicing through him again, as he felt the unforgiving eye of whatever lay ahead watch them both. In that moment, uncertainty collided with determination. What would they unleash? And could the truth they sought actually save them, or would it be the very thing that destroyed them? They stood on the brink, ready for impact, knowing they had crossed a line from which there would be no return. Together. Lila cried with fierce belief, as the shadows lunged. One final time, and Paul clenched his fists, standing ready for whatever came next. What horrors would the truth reveal, and could it bind them or tear them apart forever? The growl morphed into a terrifying roar, shaking the very ground beneath them. Paul and Lila exchanged a quick glance, their expressions flickering between resolve and raw anxiety. Shadows elongated, twisting into grotesque forms, eager to consume their light. Stay close. Lila yelled, tightening her grip around Paul's arm. As the darkness lunged forward, a mass of swirling despair and rage, Paul felt a surge of determination. This was it. All those years of running, hiding from his own truth, and now, he had to face it full force. Remember. Lila's voice cut through the chaos. Face it together. Paul's heart raced as he recalled the moments that had haunted him. He had avoided the mirror, shunned his reflection, and buried his memories deep. The faces of those he had let down haunted him, the laughter of friends, the joy snatched away too soon, replaced by shadows of the past. James! He shouted, his voice shaking but fierce. This isn't just your battle. It's ours. The shadows halted, momentarily stunned. For a fleeting second, Paul thought he could see James's rage boil over, the dark figure wavering with uncertainty. But the moment was brief, and a piercing laugh erupted from the void, aiming to shred their hope. Fools! You think your tiny spark can fend off the storm? The laughter bounced around them, a grotesque echo that danced along the walls of their fear. You are nothing without your chains, Paul. Maybe. Paul countered, drawing on the strength of every fearful thought to shield himself from despair. But I'm done being shackled by my own cowardice. I refuse to let your lies define me. With those words, something shifted. Lila stepped in front of Paul, the fire in her eyes igniting a flicker of light in the encroaching darkness. Our truth is our power. She shouted defiantly. And then they moved. Paul and Lila surged forward, the two flames intertwining into a force bright enough to ward off the advance of the shadows. The moment felt electric, like they were forging a weapon from their shared pain, but just as they began to gain ground, the shadows lashed out once more, faster and more vicious, snapping at their heels. Paul could feel tendrils of darkness tugging at him, whispering doubts that threatened to pull him back into the abyss. Remember your fears. Use them. Lila shouted against the chaos, her voice a steadfast anchor. Paul focused, visualizing those dark moments, the betrayal, the loss, the guilt. He gritted his teeth. You will not drown me in my own despair. With each confession, the shadows shrank, squeezing the darkness like a sponge. He felt lighter, unburdening himself of the weight he had carried for too long. Feel the freedom. Lila exclaimed, her energy infectious. Paul was buoyed by her belief, the flames of their unity driving warmth through his veins, yet with every inch they gained, James's snarl filled the air, rage spilling out of him like a boiling pot. You're playing with forces you don't understand. I will take everything from you. In that moment, the ground trembled. The earth below them cracked open, a yawning chasm threatening to pull them both into darkness. Paul's breath hitched, panic flaring as he stumbled back. Lila! Hold on! He yelled, extending his hand toward her. But the shadows surged again, and Lila was snatched away, dragged towards the darkness. Her scream pierced the air, begging for him, yet filled with resolve. Paul, you have to fight. The ground twisted beneath him, dark and hungry, but Paul felt a surge of adrenaline flooding through him. It ignited a primal need to protect what was his. He couldn't lose her. Not again. That he dove forward, tearing through the shadowy grip that threatened to end her. I want to let you go. As the chaos roared around them, Paul grasped her hand, pulling her back into the light, but simultaneously, a devastating realization hit him. The truth he had been running from, the lies woven from guilt and shame, they were still lurking, waiting to reveal themselves in their most crumbling moment. And as they fought back against the chasm of shadows, Paul heard it, a whisper threading through the dark, promising to unleash a deeper horror than either had anticipated. What if the shadows around them were just the beginning? What terror lay waiting in the depths of their own hidden truths? Together. Lila shouted once more, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes, and Paul felt the walls pressing closer, the shadows surrounding them again. His heartbeat quickened, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something worse awaited, the true face of their fears, lurking just beyond the edge of comprehension, ready to emerge. Would they be ready to face it? Or would they retreat into the very darkness they had fought so hard to escape? The ground quaked beneath them, threatening to open wide and swallow them whole. Shadows swirled and hissed, creating a din of chaos that seemed to claw at Paul's sanity. He could feel the weight of Lila's hand in his, the warmth grounding him even as the cold grip of terror spiraled around their ankles. Stay strong, she cried, pulling him again toward the glowing edge of hope they had begun to forge. But deep inside, Paul felt a tremor of doubt. What if they couldn't conquer all of this? What if James, the specter of his own guilt, was right? The shadows writhed with renewed ferocity. James's face twisted in fury, a mask of rage and desperation. You're fighting against yourself. Your past is a prison, and you'll never escape it. Shut up. Paul shouted back, the defiance sparking a fire inside him. He took a deep breath, focusing on the pain that had become his familiar companion. I am not defined by my past. I can shape my own future. Lila surged alongside him, her presence igniting a fierce energy. We choose our path. Not you. Together they pushed forward, channeling their fear into a blazing force that carved through the darkness, yet, even as it seemed they were gaining ground, the void lurked, ready to strike back. With each passing moment, the laughter of James echoed around them, resonating with a stinging truth that was all too familiar. You think you're free? You think your light can outshine my darkness? You're a slave to your fears. A chill washed over Paul, and in that instant, an image flashed through his mind, the hardest truth he had ever faced. The face of his choices loomed, dark and undeniable. Memories from his childhood flooded in, moments of hesitation and regret that had shackled him far beyond this battle. Remember your chains. James taunted, a sinister grin spreading across his face, as the earth twisted in response to their weakening resolve. They're all you've ever known. No. Paul shouted, shaking his head. You will not own me. Not now. Not ever. Lila's voice rang out, intermingling with his. We are not alone. Together we are more. The magic of their unity sparked again in the air, blindingly bright, but it was met with a renewed onslaught from the shadows. The darkness swelled a tide of hatred that crested and crashed against their light, the ground convulsed violently, and with a thunderous crack, Paul and Lila were separated. The light flickered, their connection strained. Lila. He called out, seeing her slip further into the encroaching darkness. Paul. Her voice, filled with determination, echoed back, but it was losing strength. He reached wildly, scrambling to cross the growing rift, feeling the maelstrom of shadows engulf him. No. He pushed his trembling body against the suffocating dark, trying to will himself to her. The faces of those he had wronged flashed before him, his family, friends, everyone who had ever cared. He couldn't let them down again. He wouldn't lose Lila, not like this. Listen. Lila's voice sliced through the chaos, sharp and clear. The shadows cannot take who we really are. They only feed on what we refuse to face. Paul felt a surge of understanding stab through the fog. The last piece of himself, the fragmented shards of his truth, lay just beyond the pull of darkness. And just like that, a light bloomed within him, fueled by every regret and triumph he had avoided. With a fierce shout, he rallied his focus. We'll face this together, Lila. No more running. I will not be your slave, James. The ground rumbled violently, shadows recoiling as Paul stepped forward, igniting the fire of his truth. Lila joined him, and their combined light pushed back against the thick darkness, illuminating the faces of those he had lost and those he loved. In that moment of brilliance, everything changed. Bursting through the dark, a figure emerged, translucent and ethereal. Paul's breath caught as he recognized her. Mom. The word escaped, trembling with hope and disbelief. But before he could ask, her voice filled the air, promising to uncover what had been buried far too long. Face what you've hidden, Paul, or lose everything. The shadows screamed, pulling at both of them, ready to reclaim their ground. But standing there, Paul realized this was just the beginning. What else would he have to confront? And could he truly embrace the truth that lingered beyond the shadows? As the darkness swirled around them, Paul braced for whatever lay ahead, determined to uncover the deepest fears he had buried. What awaited to break free? And could they withstand the whirlwind of their past? The darkness hissed around Paul, swirling like a menacing storm, each shadow alive with whispers of pain and regret. In that tumultuous moment, every breath he took held the weight of years spent running from the truth. Lila stood beside him, fierce and unwavering, her presence a beacon of hope in the suffocating void. Together, she urged, her voice steadfast despite the chaos swirling around them. It was a lifeline he desperately clung to. Together, Paul echoed, the resolve building inside him. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, he was fighting for her, for the memories they shared, for every lost moment that had haunted his dreams. As if sensing their unity, the shadows surged forward, an army of darkness determined to snuff out their light. "You'll always be my slave," James screeched, his voice laced with venom. "You think you can escape the chains that bind you? They are your legacy." In that instant, something snapped inside Paul. The memories flooded back, the night Lila had been taken from him, the guilt that had festered like an open wound. He remembered the dreams where chains wrapped around his heart, squeezing until there was no air left. But now, facing those memories head-on, a fierce fire ignited in his chest. "I am not a slave to my past," he shouted, gripping Lila's hand tighter. As if responding to his proclamation, a brilliant light exploded from their clasped hands. The shadows recoiled with inevitable dread, visibly shaken by the unified power surging within Paul and Lila. "Feel the truth!" Lila shouted, her eyes sparkling with determination. Paul felt it, the truth he'd stifled for too long. Each painful memory, each regret became raw fuel, transforming him from a man shackled by fear into someone unyielding, relentless. "I am not defined by my mistakes," he cried, focusing all the energy coursing through him into a single thought, a single action. With a deafening roar, the shadows swirled, eager to consume him, but Paul stood firm, heart pounding in sync with Lila's. The darkness tightened around them, but it wasn't just menacing, it was vulnerable, quivering in fear of what they were becoming. "Release me," he demanded with newfound fervor. "I embrace my pain, it's part of who I am, but it will not control me." The shadows shrieked, the cacophony of their fear reverberating like a tornado, spinning wildly, trying to pull Paul into the depths once more. But with each scream, Paul's defiance grew louder, grounding him against the tide. The shadows lashed out, angry and dark, but Paul pushed back, his light expanding fiercely. "Bring it on," he challenged, feeling Lila's steady presence amplify his strength. He envisioned the faces of everyone he loved, everyone he had let down, and summoned them as a shield against James's twisted mockery. Then, the shadows retreated, pulling back like a tide, revealing a shimmering pathway and exit, but not just from this alley, from his past. "Go!" Lila cried, her voice a clarion call calling him forward. Unhesitating, they sprang toward the light. As they surged forward into the brilliant beam, Paul felt the shadows clawing at his heels, desperate to cling to the past. He took one last look back at James, whose face twisted with rage and despair. "This isn't the end," James screeched, the darkness enveloping him, a defeated king consumed by his own malice. Inside the light, Paul felt clarity wash over him, a serenity that washed away the tumult of fear and guilt. Hand in hand with Lila, they stepped into a world free of shadows, a fresh start. The bond between them shimmered like never before, stitched from shared battles and truths finally aired. "Maybe this is the moment we break free," Lila said, glancing up at him, her expression both fierce and tender. Paul nodded, taking a deep breath. The darkness that had once overwhelmed him began to recede. "Together, we write our own story now." As they moved forward, a sense of peace settled inside him. The scars would always be a part of him, like shadows lingering in the corners of his mind, but he had faced them. He had faced James, the specter of his own fears, and emerged stronger, no longer a slave to the past. And as they stepped into the light, hand in hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that finally he was free. Now, that's the kind of ending that stays with you. However, don't just walk away from this incredible conclusion. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any of the exclusive content coming your way. Smash that like button now to boost the algorithm and share this journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories on Paul's transformation. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who'd benefit from seeing this powerful ending. Don't wait even one more second, show your support and be part of this amazing community.